Hey Amarillo. I'm Skylar Gallup, and you're listening to Hey Amarillo. It's the interview podcast featuring some of the most interesting people and stories of Amarillo, Texas. We record each week at the beautiful offices of Rosenbach Contractors, experts in high-end design and construction, creating stunning, functional spaces through both new builds and remodels. Today's guest is Seth Wieck. Seth is a fourth-generation Texan, fourth-generation Umbargerian, if we can call it that. He grew up on the farms outside of the Umbarger community, and when farming was no longer his family's path, Seth found writing. He writes as a way to preserve memory and share the way he sees things, as he says. And I think you'll find it a beautiful way to see things, particularly this place we collectively call home. Here's Seth. Seth Wieck, welcome to the Hey Amarillo podcast.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Happy to be here. So, where are you from? You just asked me. Your turn. Where are you from?
I am from Umbarger, Texas, which is about 30 miles southwest of Amarillo. Not quite big enough for school, so I kind of split growing up between Umbarger and Canyon, where the closest school was.
Nice. Is your family in Umbarger for a long time?
Yes, for 4 generations. I think my great-grandfather, Ludwig, came over from Germany and stepped off the train in about 1920. And that was about all there was a train stop at that point. And then bought a farm, stayed and had a lot of kids. And then I left the farm in 1999 when I graduated from high school.
And where did you go from the farm?
I went to WT for college for 4 years. Graduated in 2003, and then kind of moved on to Amarillo from there.
What did you study at WT?
I was an English major with a minor in philosophy.
Oh.
I started off as an art major for 1 semester. I hadn't actually planned on going to college. It wasn't a thing. I mean, I grew up on the farm, again, 4th generation, so that was the plan. I figured I would just continue farming. And when I was 18, I started talking to my dad about getting land of my own and starting what that process looked like. And he said, maybe you should go to college. I don't know if that was a comment on my ability to farm or if that was, which it may have been, or if it was more of the paradigm had shifted. That was a word he used, I think, at that time a lot. That had moved away from family farms that he'd grown up with and kind of moved into a corporate structure. And I probably wouldn't be suited for that. So he said, go to college. It's probably a good idea. He was looking at retiring. He was 40, which is younger than I am now. He was retiring from farming because there was no health insurance. You're dependent on the weather, and this is not a great place to be dependent on the weather to raise crops. Although we'd clearly done it for nearly 100 years at that point. So I went to college. I could draw fairly well. And I had looked at in the 6 months before I graduated from high school and realized that I needed to go start looking at colleges. The one college that caught my eye was in Savannah, but it was like $30,000 a year. And I couldn't even imagine. That was like, I don't know, maybe I'll go to the moon instead for college. So
what a time that $30,000 a year was just preposterous.
Right, and that was in 1999. So,
Jeez.
So I was an art major for a semester. Really actually loved it, but I had an English class, and the professor kind of took apart Robert Frost's Stopping in the Woods on a Snowy Evening and then put it back together, and I was like, that's what I want to do.
You were hooked.
I was hooked, yeah.
How perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go back. Your story about the family farm, whereas I hope that it worked out well for you, that's a sad story for this area.
Well, yeah, and I think it's fairly common and probably feels sad. I don't know. I've got 30 years on it now, and
Sure.
and it doesn't feel particularly sad. Although it is. I mean, for a whole, not just one generation, but like people grew up doing this, and that like my great grandfather. The fact that they came and stuck is just a miracle. When they showed up, how do you build a house? Because there are no trees. How do you light a fire to warm a house? There are no trees. They were burning cow dung. and grass. That was it. So they would get together as an entire community. And at that point, Umbarger they had a kind of centralized around the church that's there, St. Mary's, which is a really, really fascinating story in itself. But they were all farms kind of spread out around the area. But they would get together and buy a train car of coal or lumber or whatever, and then everybody come up to the train, unload it onto their wagons, and divvy it out. And then that's kind of how they would survive for the winter, and then raise enough food in the warm months where they could survive. So the fact that they stuck it out for one generation, let alone thrived really, and did really well for the 20th century was remarkable. But things change.
Things change, yeah. I just think every family farm whose father makes the smart decision to tell his son, like, no, maybe not, because of, kind of corporate buy-up is like one less, right? One less really rich story for the Panhandle. Yeah. Yeah,
I think my imagination's still on that farm, a great deal of it. I don't know. I mean, it's just kind of the way I look at the world. Even, just watching weather, it's a different. In town, I can water my grass and I have trees and things, but it's a different way of just looking towards the horizon, like what's coming in the next few hours. Always, it's just always looking for that.
That's lovely, and sort of takes me back to where I want to pick back up on. So you went into English because of Robert Frost, which is like perfect.
Sure.
And you said a minor in philosophy. At that point, what did your journey look like? What were you headed toward?
Well, I thought at that point I would like to write. There wasn't really a category for it in my mind. Like, I mean, you get to college and suddenly you're studying writers who were professional, and I needed to look around and see who else is doing that. And there weren't very many models for that here.
Sure.
In Amarillo.
They're all still farming.
They were farming, or they moved somewhere else in the country where there's more of a market for it, I guess. When I graduated from college, I became a technical writer at a bank software company. If you've seen Office Space, I was one of the characters in that show.
Nice.
And it was about as exciting as that sounds. I wrote how-to manuals for banks to use the software that we produced for them. It was actually a pretty cool company. It was founded here in Amarillo. They've sold off now to a bigger company, but.
What was the company?
It was called McCoy Myers.
Okay.
I think it's called CSI now.
Oh, okay. Cool.
But it was founded here, and they had 80 plus employees, and small town banks were a lot more viable at that point. And so for them to compete, they had to have software that would run, and so they specialized in small town bank software, which is really, really fascinating. But things have changed a little.
Again. So while you were living in the world of Office Space, was it like, were you creative writing at home? Like, is that something that as soon as you kind of, it sounds like, saw that you could in college, was that just like now you're writing and writing and writing, and this is like tumbling out of you?
Absolutely.
Nice.
Even during the bank software job, sometimes I would have to, during the manual writing things, I would make up characters, and there would be this person would come in and start an account, and just to show people how it would work, and then like, this man has a mistress, and he has all of these kinds of characters that nobody ever knows but me. But it was like at least scratching the itch. But at night I would go home and write or read. It was nice because at that point, before phones, and I didn't have the internet, I didn't have a TV. I just went home and read books and wrote, and nothing good at that point, but it was a really formative apprenticeship, I guess, at that point.
Yeah. How long did you do the technical writing?
I was there for a couple of years, and then I got a job as a copywriter, doing more advertising kinds of things.
Local?
That's kind of soul crushing. It was for me, and not for everybody. And I know a lot of people that still do it, and they're all great at it, and they're able to do it with gusto and believe in the products they're selling. I had a little trouble. I'm too contrarian, I guess. But
so give me an idea. What year was this, and how old were you?
Let's see. I became a copywriter when I was 23, 24. Okay. This was 2004, 2005 to 2009, probably. And then I switched to teaching.
Ooh.
I thought I could have summers off, get paid about the same as I was making that, and have more time to write and get to talk about literature with kids every day. So that was fun.
Cool. Where and what did you teach?
I started off at a private school called Arbor Christian Academy. I quit my copywriting job on a Friday and started teaching the next Monday.
Oh.
And I had 5 subjects, and it was tough. But it was great. And I've actually got, I mean, those kids are all now 34. I have some friends that were students at that point that have become adult friends now.
Yeah.
Which is really fun. And then I went from there, quick stint at Amarillo High.
Oh, cool.
They had a kind of a GED, like kids that just either they were falling behind on credits, or they were like, we're not graduating. We're like, well, let's see if we can get you a GED at least. So
I love some of that work is really, really impactful.
It is. I got to meet a section of the student population that you're like, most people don't even know are there.
Yeah.
And then from there, I went to Boys Ranch. So I taught most of my teaching time was at Boys Ranch, which I love.
Cool. Yeah.
Love. I mean, my kids all go to Amarillo schools, and I went to Canyon. It was all great, but I think Boys Ranch is probably the best public school in Texas. It's such a unique place, and they have it's really neat.
It is a very special place. Talk to me a little bit about your experience out there.
Yeah, it was. I taught for a while, then did some construction stuff, and then went back to teach. Boys Ranch is such a unique place. I mean, like, for one, the first week you're teaching out there, they're like, oh yeah, you have duty at the rodeo. So you put on your Wranglers and your cowboy hat, and you go work the rodeo. And it's 76, 77 years a tradition that they have out there. And the kids that you had in class on Friday are there roping and riding. Well, they don't ride bulls anymore, but
anymore. Things change.
Yeah, they do. Insurance makes things change.
Turns out.
Yeah. But no, it was such a neat experience. And then the kids are from all over the country. I mean, you had kids that had been adopted from Haiti, kids from New York, kids from Russia. They had been adopted into America and then kind of wound up out there. And then kids from Amarillo. And they're all just mixed in this tiny little, and what used to be a town, Tascosa, is now just a community built for these kids. Really fascinating. You know, it's such a long history. Cal Farley put the thing together after World War I, seeing a need for kids that either had lost dads in war or had dads at war or just were in troubled homes locally, and then the vision expanded to nationwide. Really fascinating place.
It is. How long were you out there?
10 years altogether.
Wow. That's a good chunk of change.
Yeah, great people.
What did you do after Boys Ranch?
Well, I left the year after COVID. So I taught one more year after COVID, which was, COVID split a lot of teachers' brains. I was at home teaching my kids and also on the computer teaching kids out there. And then when we got back out there, it was just such a strange time for public education. And my wife and I had a lot of conversations about, I was turning 40 that year. And as a teacher, unfortunately, you hit a ceiling about how much you can earn. And my kids were looking at college. And so maybe there's something else that I could do. And my wife has done real estate forever. And I would not be a very good salesperson. So I looked at other things in the real estate thing, and I became a real estate appraiser, which is a 2-year apprenticeship. So when I turned 40, I left teaching, became an apprentice to an appraiser here in town, Mark Cameron. So now I've been doing that for I got my MFA, but I've been doing appraisal work for 5 years.
And what does your writing look like all this time?
That's kind of been the through line for every career thing that I've had is how can I make the writing work? People have this idea, if you watch movies, like, somebody typing away all day, and you just need this large tracts of time to be doing this stuff. But that's not really probably how 95% of writers work.
You don't get thousands in advance from a publishing house and go sit in a cabin for a year?
Even if you did get thousands in advance, 1,000, if you got a $10,000 advance, what is that?
Right.
They'll pay for 3
Couple
months.
mortgages. Yeah.
And it's so changed from those, you think of like Hemingway or whatever, and they were able to do this stuff. I read a statistic the other day. I will come back to your question. But in all of the 20th century, the United States of America produced about 2.5 million titles. Since 2000, the United States has produced about that much every year or two. So if you think about like just the market of supply and demand, if there are that many people writing books, and that includes all kinds of books, not just fiction or whatever.
And not all Hemingway.
No, not all. Most never never even sniffs at what Hemingway is able to do. So if they're producing that much, like the price, I guess, goes down. Supply is high.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Demand may stay the same, but the supply is extremely high. So the value goes down. I mean, if you're just looking economically.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
So the through line for all of my careers have been, how can I make that work?
How did you? So was it always poetry? You're a poet now. You just you just published your first book of poetry.
It comes out maybe this week.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So you have one of the first copies available.
Thank you, and congratulations. That's such a milestone, I imagine.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a long time coming. I think the oldest poem in that is about 20 years old. So back in my apartment as a bachelor, where with no internet, it was the first poem.
Neat.
Where were we?
Yeah. What was it? Always poetry?
Not always poetry. Poetry is a little easier to fit into margins. I've discovered. I have a novel that I've been slowly working on for a long time, set in Tulia.
To fit into margins. What does that mean?
To write, I think, a novel. You have to exist in that world for hours at a time, because you're trying to work out problems between people and situations as if it were real life. I mean, they're real conflicts that you have to sort out, and then you have to get it down on the page, and so you're kind of splitting your focus between what's going on in your real life and what's going on in this imaginary world, and sometimes those things bleed into each other. And probably good art is going to have the real life bleed into it. To do that, you need 4 or 5, 6 hours a day to be able to sit at the desk and kind of sort these problems out. And that's hard to do. So poetry, typically, at least like smaller lyrical poems, I can sit down and get a draft out on a Saturday morning. And then I can tinker with it in the 10 or 15-minute breaks that I have and other things until I feel like it's ready to be finished. But to hammer out a draft of a novel is going to take a month, several months at least, if you were just typing.
That really makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And just a perspective that you would never know if you didn't know it, Yeah.
Yeah. So the goal is always to how can I carve out enough time to get back to that novel? But in the meantime, the poems have been, it's the same project in my mind. I'm trying to see the world in a certain way, it just in smaller bites and more musical, I guess. More poetry is meant to be memorable, I guess, as opposed to living in a world for a little bit.
Hey, Amarillo. If you've ever dreamed of a home that's not just built for now, but built for the duration, you need to know about For the Duration Homes. They're a family-owned, Panhandle-based builder crafting energy-efficient and beautifully designed spaces, from custom homes to remodels to pools. What I love is their commitment to community, transparency, and treating every project like it's their own. Check out their work at ftdhomes.com or listen to their podcast. It's called The Home Innovation Show for design inspiration and building tips from right here in the Texas Panhandle. Give me an idea of kind of the flavor or tone or style of your poetry.
Well, the title of this collection is called Call Out Coyote, which is how we pronounce the word coyote or coyote where I grew up. But the title poem, or where the title comes from, is the scene when a father and a son, really, it's really my dad and I, but the father and the son are out looking at crops. And for the kid, he doesn't know what these things are. A plant is a plant to a kid, but the dad begins to name the crops. So this is milo, and this is wheat, this is corn. And to a kid, that's magical, because this is just that's the idea of parenting, is you're beginning to show your kids what exists in the world and give it a name. And once it has a name, then you can love it. So there's that. And then as the father's looking around, he points out a coyote that's running out. So far, the kid really can't even see it, but because the man has grown up there, he can see these kinds of wild things that are on the borders and just point them out. And suddenly now, not only is the kid able to name the thing, but also to see the things that maybe other people would drive by and never even see. So that's kind of that kind of passing from one generation to the next, that the memory and how to see things in the world.
I think for anyone that's raised kind of around here, that is a very, very special place to be. Whether you were a farmer's kid or not, the appreciation of this place. And I'm thinking about, how many people like drive through the Panhandle and it's just a lot of nothing. And like, what a beautiful example of how, in fact, it is a whole lot of many things, generational and parenting and teaching and crop and naming things so that you can love them, and having the skill set to see things that maybe you wouldn't see. That's like incredibly resonating, I think, for people for whom it resonates, right?
We're on 2 interstates here in Amarillo, and if you're driving by at 75 miles an hour or 80 or whatever, you miss so much of it. But if you get out of your car and walk, even if you're just walking, just in different seasons. Up until a few years ago, we lived just southwest of town. We had a few acres, and I would walk out, and most of it was just native grass species. But during different times of the year, you would have 5 different kinds of grass growing, or different weeds, which, weeds are, for grassland, it's fine. It's keeping the dirt from blowing. And then if it was a rainy year, something would pop up that had been dormant for 5 or 6 years since the last time we'd had a rainy year. And you don't see that stuff unless you're out walking around and looking for it. And I think it's all really beautiful. You got to get 6 inches off the ground to see it, I guess.
How many kids do you have?
I have 3 kids. My oldest they all have birthdays this month. So they turn 17, 15, and 12. Yes.
I'm thinking about how, not on the 4-generational family farm on Umbarger, how you kind of shared those lessons, which clearly were incredibly impactful for you, with your kids.
Well, it's a little bit of a point of frustration for me as a parent, because I would go to work with Dad. I would fall asleep in the tractor as we were plowing, and I just remember like being woken up every 14 seconds when I hit my head against the window.
It's perfect.
Yeah. So it's been kind of a work of like, how do I get my kids to be able to see things? And part of it's like, I get a little antsy. I do like being in town. I love the trees. They're just here. We have trees. It's amazing. But I get a little antsy because I can't see very far. So we'll go on walks, and I'll point out things. You have the different trees that come into different seasons. I'm always, since they were little, I've been like, look for the mulberry trees, because they're as soon as we have a hard freeze, they drop all of their leaves. And so it's just been a thing that they look for now. Like, oh, hey, it's cold now.
They know that about mulberry trees.
They do, yeah.
That's really valuable. I just lost a giant mulberry tree in my backyard.
Oh, no.
I'm so sad about it.
They're such great shade trees.
They were.
Yeah. Well, maybe you can get a new one to grow.
I'm sure I will. Why do you write poetry? Why do you write?
That's a good question.
Thank you.
You're very good at this.
That's what we're here for.
I write poetry first, I think, because language is just endlessly fascinating and still fun. I mean, there's a reason dad jokes still exist, because you can make puns on things. Words can mean different things. The way that words sound next to each other. There's a poem by Christian Wyman. At 16 miles from Abilene, Trent to be exact, hell-bent on being not this and not that, I drove a steamroller smack dab over a fat black snake. I mean, doesn't that just sound amazing?
It does.
And it also, like, it really, well, if you read the rest of the poem, it tells you, like, he's down from kind of about where you were, Snyder.
Yeah.
It's just flat. And he continues on, but the way that the words all chime off of each other, even if they're not necessarily rhyming, most of them do, but it's just fun. It makes it where you want to say it out loud. I think that's part of it. The other part is language is, at least in my mind, it's kind of a tool for memory. I think that's probably what it was. If you look at like linguists and their theories about how language came to be, it kind of developed as song. People didn't have a way to remember something. You didn't write down a grocery list because there was no paper, there was no pencil, there wasn't even an alphabet. So how would you remember something, even a small task? You would make a song out of it. It had rhythm, it had rhyme, probably. And then that grows into like, well, remember the time we killed the mammoth? And well, let's sing a song about it. And then we'll remember it, and then we'll tell our kids about killing the mammoth, and then they'll think they can do it too. And then suddenly there's a hero that develops into it, and then you have epic poetry suddenly. So I think that's part of it. I mean, one of the things that we kind of implied at the beginning, me leaving the farm, I'm hardly the only person that left the farm, even just an Umbarger of my generation. But that community is still really important to me. And I think ought to be important to everybody, or at least communities like that. And how do you remember that? Because a communal memory doesn't exist anywhere except for in the language, the people telling the stories about it. And I think poetry is the most easily memorizable. I mean, as a tool for memory, I think that's one of the reasons that I gravitate towards poetry. Just to kind of keep some of those memories alive, even if it's not just in Umbarger, but also here in Amarillo, or even for my own kids. Like, here's a thing that I want you to know. How can I get you to remember it? Well, you put it in a really good line, they'll remember it, especially in those really hard parts of life.
How lovely to think about kind of where we started talking about the sad story, as I called it, of us kind of like losing family farms, and this being a way to, as best we're able, in the face of changing times, which they will always, preserve that for your kids who didn't get to fall asleep in a tractor.
Yes, yeah. Hopefully they'll have some memory of it, even if it's not their memory of it. But it's in the language, hopefully.
That's lovely. Who are your favorite authors?
My favorite book is called All the King's Men by Robert Penn Warren. It was written in the 40s, right after World War II. He was kind of that 20th century kind of genius, where he could write whatever he wanted to. He won 2 Pulitzers in poetry and 1 in fiction. He wrote textbooks. I mean, he could just the literary climate at that point fostered people like that. But that book is really great. It's set in Louisiana. It's kind of based on a real person, a real governor of Louisiana, or senator from Louisiana. But it's kind of the idea about how power can corrupt people, even people with really good intentions. But it's also just told in just the most magical language. I mean, the way he describes things. So he's top of the list. A guy named Cormac McCarthy, who died a couple years ago. I come back to his books just mainly because his sentences are incredible. There's no plot in any of his books. The way that he sees creation, the world around him, and then gives it to us in language. It's just like looking at a good painting. Somebody that was able to see details that nobody else can see, and then use words that we've forgotten exists, but you're like, yeah, that's the right word. I don't know how you did it, but you found the right one.
That's fun.
So I really like those two guys. There's a whole list of others. I mean, as far as poets go, Morris Manning, he's a farmer poet in Kentucky that I really like. His book Bucolics is just amazing. There's not a single piece of punctuation, but you can read it like you're having a conversation with somebody. It's really beautiful.
Thank you. That was really a selfish question because I'm a reader.
Okay.
And I just wanted to pick your brain about good books.
Okay.
So
Who are
thank
your
you.
favorite authors? That's what I want to know.
Oh my goodness, certainly not as deep as that, but I think some good ones. I like Ken Follett.
Yeah. Big historical fiction stuff. Okay.
I am a historical fiction.
Okay.
The history is too dry for me. You got to throw some love stories.
Sure. No, I agree. I mean, the history exists because of love stories. I mean, Troy, the Iliad was written because of a love story, right? So
Totally.
Yeah.
So now that you have published your first, or are publishing kind of like actively, your first book of poetry, it sounds like you've noted a book that you're working on, a novel. What do you continue to do?
The publisher, Wise Blood, they've asked for the novel. They've seen pieces of it, and they've asked for it when it's done, which would be great. I've told them it's not ready yet, so I'll keep working on that. I think I need to turn my attention 100% to that now. Although I keep getting distracted with other little projects. I want to write started a poem about we talked just briefly about the church in Umbarger, St. Mary's. It has this great history. During World War II, there were these Italian POWs that were brought over here, unrepentant fascists. They got put in a camp here in Hereford anyway. But the church there contracted with them to feed them, and they would paint murals. And it's just a fascinating story. Another guy named Don Williams has written a really great book about it. But I started writing a poem about it, so I'm distracted. But I will get back to the novel and tell you. I'm excited about it.
Neat. I'll have to look at. I'm unfamiliar with the St. Mary's Church in Umbarger. I just know about Rafter G's.
I was there the other day. It's called Mojo's now.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a breakfast burrito. Fantastic. Shout out to Mojo's.
We used to go out there in college. Do they still have the steakhouse?
It's still there. It's in there, and I think they have a drive-through window, so I got a breakfast burrito on my way to Hereford the other day.
Yeah.
So I assume they still have steak and stuff, but yeah.
Well, I'll have to look into the church.
Yeah. It's a great. You can find a lot of history about it. The art professors at WT have done quite a bit of work on it too. So there's plenty of interesting stories about it.
That's cool. So I think finally, I always love asking creators, is there a Seth Wieck that is not a writer?
95% of me is not a writer. It's a thing that I do. It's a way that I see the world. But I'm a dad. I'm a husband. The writing can be used to serve those things. In fact, it helps if I write my wife some poems occasionally.
Oh, I bet it does.
instead of I don't know, about whatever doom and things that the world wants you to write about. It's nice to write a love poem.
It is. This Valentine's Day weekend.
Sure, yeah.
Very
Speaking
nice.
of, I probably ought to write one.
Write a poem.
There are all those things. One of the reasons that I would write a poem anyway is to like I said, it's to serve my kids. Like, can I pass this memory on to you guys in some way?
Does your marketing feel like a shot in the dark? Are your social media posts getting lost in the scroll? Unlock your business's potential with SKP Creative. They know your audience and design posts that reflect your brand and drive real engagement. From scroll-stopping social media content to powerful traditional marketing, graphic design, and website development, SKP Creative covers it all. Are you ready to elevate your feed and turn your marketing into a success story? Visit skpcreative.com today. Okay, I'm back with Seth Wieck. Seth, this is the part of the show I like to call 8 Straight.
Okay.
When you think of Amarillo 10 years from now, what do you hope for?
Any healthy city, thriving, it has to have growth to some extent. I mean, if you think of it as an organism needs to grow. It needs to grow according to its kind, I guess, if that makes sense. Like, it doesn't help to have a dog that's 500 pounds. That's not what dogs are made to be. Amarillo is an organism. It's a living organism. It's a city. So it needs to grow according to its kind. I don't know what that means necessarily. Cities can grow as big as they can grow, I guess. But I think it's important when in the kinds of decisions we have, economic growth is always a concern. More jobs is always a good thing, usually. But I think at the same time, it's really good to understand what our history is, what kind of people we are, I guess. I mean, because like just talking about the pioneers of my great-grandparents that settled here, the people that stuck it out and survived for a kind of reason. And nothing's changed about our environment except for it's gotten drier.
Yeah, right.
And we have less topsoil thanks to the Dust Bowl. So thinking about it in terms like that, well, what did those people have in their DNA, cultural DNA, that made them be able to survive and thrive in this geographical spot? And I think the more we understand those kinds of things and keep it in our memory, the better we'll be able to make good decisions about what kind of city we are, if that makes sense.
I really dig the idea of making sure that our cultural DNA is kept in mind in growth.
Otherwise, we look like every other city. Like Wendell Berry says, they came on their way to go home. They came to the city that looked like every other city, and they couldn't recognize it because, oh, great, we got a cheesecake factory or whatever. Not that I hate Cheesecake Factory, but like that's not the marker of being the city that you're supposed to be. That's just the marker that Dallas has or whatever.
City, yeah. When was the last time you went to PDC?
Last spring break. We're kind of a once a year Palo Canyon family.
Cool.
We always love it, and we're always like, let's do it again, like right now. But then we're also in the stage of kids going to sports. And
Yeah, you blink and it's a year later, and then you go again. I totally get it. Other than wind, what does this area have too much of?
Rubberneckers.
Ooh.
And I let me qualify that. I mean that in people that are constantly looking over their shoulder, saying, "What are they doing in the big places? I want to do that," instead of saying like, "What's here? What can I love about this place?" It's kind of I go off on these tangents.
That's what we're here for.
I mean, growing up in Umbarger, obviously it's a place it's different than what most of the world is.
Yeah.
But because it was built on this kind of like, you had these community farms and you had kind of a centered parish, a parochial way of looking at things. Everybody kind of had this communal like goal of what we're doing here. And if we loved it together, if we loved this land, it's going to make my neighbor's land better, and we'll help you get your crops in. And if everybody's flourishing here, that's much better for us.
I like that. What does this area not have enough of?
I don't know. I feel pretty satisfied. I'm content.
You can tell that you are content with this place.
I like it.
What's your favorite local building?
The Santa Fe building. When I graduated from high school, Potter County had just purchased it, and they were remodeling it, and I worked for the painters. Somebody at some point had painted all of the woodwork in the whole place.
Bless.
And so we, the grunt guys, the 18-year-olds, we scraped the paint off of every bit of crown molding, chair rail, and baseboard and door in that building.
You know the Santa Fe building more than most, it sounds.
Most, yes.
It's a beautiful building.
It is.
What is your favorite local restaurant, Seth?
There are a lot.
There are.
And it's hard to get. If my wife and I are going on a date, we usually wind up at Public House.
Nice.
It's just a solid bet. Great service, great food. But gosh, I mean, you could go on and on. All the Mexican food places we have that are just fantastic.
So good.
I know.
Yep, we are spoiled. Okay, Seth, you've got 4 hours
Yep.
in Amarillo with a person who has never been here. What are you doing?
That is a great question.
Thank you.
One of the nice things about Amarillo is you're only 20 minutes from anywhere in Amarillo. So 4 hours, if you're breaking it down, like you can go anywhere in Amarillo and then go back to the other side of Amarillo.
You got some time.
And you still have time to do things.
Totally.
Gosh, the coolest things to do in Amarillo. I like to go to bookstores. Not everybody does, but we have some good ones.
We have some good ones.
Burrowing Owl
Yes.
is great. Canyon and Amarillo. You can go to both of them.
That's right.
Because you can get to Canyon
You
in
have
15
time.
minutes. There's one on 6th Street that I go to pretty often, Aunt Eek's Books and Curiosities.
It's very cool.
Great, eclectic, but she's in a lot of estate sales, so you get some really, really cool books. Barnes & Noble's fantastic. We have actually, from what I understand, like one of the best Barnes & Nobles in the entire country.
Oh, really?
Like during COVID, they were like one of the top producing, which is great. Good location. I like going in there. My kids like going in there.
Yeah.
And then there's another one. It's not technically a bookstore, but Caliche. I'd go in there for the records. They have a record store. Bitter
that?
Buffalo. It's Lance Garza.
On 6th?
It's off of 6th.
Yeah. It's like I can
it's
see
like
the
on 7th or
storefront.
something.
Yeah.
But he also is in a lot of estate sale stuff, and he knows all of the local books that have been written over the last 60 years.
Oh, cool.
So he'll be able to find, hey, did you know this guy? He wrote this book, and here's some history. So like, if for somebody who's really interested in finding out about what's going on in Amarillo, or what has gone on in Amarillo, and like those big boom periods like the 50s and 60s, enough stuff was going on in Amarillo culturally that they had authors that were producing books that were being turned into movies. Like that's really significant, and we've forgotten about all that stuff completely. But you go into one of these bookstores and somebody can point those things out to you and be like, "Oh, that's incredible." So
That is a great recommendation. Thank
Yeah.
you. That's cool. And I think filled 4 hours just with bookstores.
I think so.
Book
I think
tour.
so. Yeah, perfect.
What do you think people get wrong about Amarillo?
I mean, like we spoke about earlier, if you're just driving through at 75 miles an hour, this is any American city, though. If you drive through the interstate, you're only seeing the industrial side of the city or the backs of actual buildings. And that's not attractive for anything. So if you can get off the interstate and drive around, go into a neighborhood, and just see like the history of the architecture as things have progressed from kind of the northeast side of town, or what it was Central City, moving southwest, and you just get like a really fascinating history of what's going on. When were the booms? What was going on in these periods that led to thriving? The houses get bigger, then they get smaller, they get nicer, then they just depending on what's going on.
Yeah, I like it. Well, now I'm thinking about geographically. That's a really cool way to look at a city's history, is watching the direction that it developed over time. I like to end by offering my guests the opportunity to endorse something. What would you endorse for listeners?
Okay. Besides the things that I've already endorsed.
And your book.
And my book, yes, please.
Got to endorse your book.
It will be at all of those bookstores that I spoke about. Burrowing Owl, especially go to your local ones. Burrowing Owl, Antiques. Lance said he'd carry it at Caliche.
Cool.
Because obviously I like local things. And they need to be supported so they can thrive. But that's not even what I'm endorsing. There's a couple of things. One, Refugee Language Project.
Yeah.
They're doing such cool things, especially at this moment in history, helping people that were in the worst kinds of situations. I mean, just thinking about my great-grandfather that came over from Germany during their culture kampf, which was kind of this culture problem that they had. And I don't even know why he came over, but I know that he decided at that point he couldn't make a living. And about 800,000 other Germans at the same time came over. So like he didn't come over as a refugee, but was in a similar situation. And then immediately after that, World War I happened.
Wow.
And so there's another wave after that. So like people that are in these situations where their country falls apart for whatever reason that has absolutely nothing to do with them are here. And we can either help them figure out their way here and then they can add to what we are, or we can despise them and then in turn be despised by them. So I think it'd be best to reach out and love. And of all the organizations that are doing it, I think Refugee Language Project is, they're the most tied into that community, the best equipped to do it. So I really like them. And one more, if I can.
Please.
Hidden Falls Ranch.
I don't know this.
It's kind of summer camp out by Happy. But my kids have gone there since they were little bitty. My oldest is now, he spends all summer out there as a counselor, and it's just fantastic. And it's on the southern rim of the Paladera Canyon. So my kids are actually out on Paladera Canyon way more than I am.
There you go.
But so they get to wake up and look at the sunrise over Paladera Canyon, and it's just great
Nice.
little place that not a lot of people know about.
Hidden Falls Ranch.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah.
Seth, thank you so much for coming in and sharing the way that you see things.
Thank you for having me. It's been great. I'm a longtime listener to the show, and I really appreciate what you're doing.
Looking for the perfect date night? The Amarillo Symphony presents Romance at the Symphony, featuring the passion of Romeo and Juliet, the excitement of West Side Story, thrilling music from Gone with the Wind, plus soprano Sarah Beckham Turner singing beloved opera arias. It is perfect for this Valentine's season. Tickets at amarillosymphony.org. And that concludes the episode. Thanks to Seth for the interview. Thank you to For the Duration Homes, SKP Creative, and the Amarillo Symphony for supporting the podcast. And thanks to Broderick Adams for editing every week. And thank you for listening. This has been episode 437 of Hey Amarillo. I'm Skylar Gallup, and we hope you'll come back next week.